Okay, so we are going to attempt to assemble the piston engine now. We have all the parts done. You can see I have them down here. I have the piston, the crankshaft, the connecting rod cap that goes on the bottom. I have a piston ring, and I have the pin that holds the piston to the connecting rod. To make this video easier to follow, I'm going to change the color of this part to something where you can see these lines a little better. So let's go with, I don't know, turquoise. Look at that. And maybe that's a little easier to see. We'll find out. So I have all the parts made, so we're going to make a new, you can do File, New, and do New Assembly that way, or you can use the shortcut key for New and do a standard assembly this way. Either way works. And then we need to place our parts. So here I have them all in the same folder because we need them all in the same folder. And rather than do them one at a time, I'm just going to click on piston, hold the shift key down, and click on pin at the bottom. That's going to highlight them all. And I'm just going to place them all once with a left click. There they are. And I'm going to right click and say OK. And there's all my parts. So there's the pin, connecting rod, the cap, the ring, and there's the piston hiding back there. So I'm going to move these right next to each other. Now it looks like they're right next to each other, but they're really not. If I look on the front, you can see they're like really far away. So I'm just going to move that back up there again. And let's try the home button and see where they are now. And bring that up. Okay. This actually isn't too bad of an angle. So we're going to need actually 3 of these rings because there's 3 grooves for the piston to have a ring in it. So we're just going to right click on this and copy. And then you can either right click and paste, or you can hit Control V. You could have hit Control C to copy it. And now we've got 3 rings. Let me just put that one out of the way for a second. Okay, so one at a time. Unfortunately, we have to do these one at a time. I'm going to move this view cube up a little bit just so I have a little better look at the inside of this groove here. So each ring is going to take 2 constraints to get it together. There we go. So the first one, we're going to come up here into our relationship and go to constrain. And the type is mate and the solution is mate. And we're going to click on the inside of the ring here so that we get this arrow pointing up. And then we're going to put that, zoom in if it's harder to see, right there on that face with the arrow pointing up or the line pointing up. And that put it right there. I'm going to hit OK. And you'll notice it's there, but it's not completely mated to the piston yet. So this is the trickier one. We're going to mate the top of this ring to the bottom of this overhanging edge here where the groove was cut out. So we're going to do constrain again, mate and mate. The top edge, so you see the arrow pointing up. And then we're going to take the view cube and move it up. And I'm going to zoom in a little bit so we can see this better. This edge right here with the arrow pointing down. And then when we hit OK, and now when you go in here and grab this with your mouse, you can move it and that ring is completely mated in place. Now you just need to do that 2 more times. 1 for there and 1 for there. So again, we're going to move this down a little bit so we can see this interface. And we're going to constrain and the inner edge to that. Okay. And then we're going to do constrain the top. And see, I can't really see there. It's hard to get. If it's hard to get, just zoom in a little bit. There we go. And go on the underside here so we can get this ledge down. That's good. And then constrain again. There, there. And then that edge. Now, I didn't move this. Can I move it? Second hand? No, I can't. So let me just cancel that. So I've got that constraint there. Let me just bring that up and then do it again. Constrain top edge to the bottom of the overhang. And then OK. And now they're all stuck on there, nice and constrained. Now, if we want to go back to having the rings in black, we can just go to the ring part and change it back. I think that was anodized black. Let's go up here. There we go. And when we go back to our assembly, it's changed for us. So that's the first part, getting the rings on the piston. Next will be getting the pin in the connecting rod. Next step is going to be to put the pin into the connecting rod so that we can then attach the piston to the connecting rod. So we're going to zoom in a little bit here. And again, this is going to be another constrain. And we're going to use the mate and the mate solution. And we're going to click on the pin so that we get this line in the middle with the arrows pointing to the right for me right now. And then we're going to go inside the ring here in the connecting rod and click that. And that's going to put that in there. Now, it's not like totally set in there, but it's on plane with it. So what we're going to do is we're going to actually mate the midpoint of the pin to the midpoint of the connecting rod. And how we're going to do that is we're going to go over into our folders here, and we're going to go to the connecting rod and open it up by clicking that plus and opening the origin folder so we can see all the different planes, and that's the one we're going to actually use. And we're going to go to the pin and do the same thing. Open the pin up, open the origin folder, and see those planes. And then we're going to do a constrain, and it's going to be a mate, but we're going to use the flush solution. And we're going to do the XY plane of the connecting rod to the XY plane of the pin. And now that is solidly on there. It's not going anywhere. Now we want to put these two together. And it might look like this is on the wrong plane because the hole is going perpendicular to the pin, but that's going to get solved when we do the constraint right here. So we're going to hit constrain, and we're going to constrain the pin, again with that line down the middle, to the inner hole here. If you can't see it, it helps just to zoom in. We're just going to click on that edge, and you see the green line appear in there. And we're going to hit OK. I'm going to zoom out. Now it's there. They're connected, but again, we have to get it like solidly mated on there. So what we're going to do is, actually, I can see this edge right here. If you can't see the edge, just take your view cube and move it around so you can see it. And what we want to do is we want to make the edge, the face of this extrusion to the surface of this side of the connecting rod. So we're going to go constrain, mate that edge. And if you can't get it, remember, zoom in. There we go. See the arrows pointing to the right. Now we want to go to the connecting rod and we want to spin it a little bit. So we're going to grab the view cube and move it. There, I'm just going to, and then we're going to move it a little bit more. There it is. And there we go. This side of the connecting rod with the arrow pointing to the left, and hit OK. All right, now that's on there. And now we just need to get the connecting rod onto the bottom here. Now, when we look at it, the connecting rod is in a tough position to mate because it is perpendicular to this part of the connecting rod. So let's just zoom this over here so we can see a little better. Now, here's the problem. If we try and just say, oh, I'll solve this in the constraint, I'll just mate this face to this face, because this is upside down right now, that will actually switch the connecting rod to go up through the top of the piston, which would be really weird. So rather than do that, we're going to try the free rotate tool. Click on that, and then we can just drag this back upside down, just like that, so it matches. And then hit right click and OK. Now we're ready to mate these things together. So let's zoom in a little bit. And we want to do constrain. And we're going to mate this face. And we got to come over to the view cube and drag this up a little bit to this face. And hit OK. And now that's there. But we need to constrain. The best way to do this is probably to constrain these bolt holes that would bolt this together. So we're going to do a constrain. I can move this out of the way a little bit so I can see it better. So we'll do constrain, mate, and then we're going to go this hole here, so with the line with the arrow pointing down, to this one. And if you can't see it again, zoom in. There we go. Now let's have a look at that. That's pretty good. Now let's try the same thing on this side. Constrain. There we go. And then I want to get, so I can see this one. And OK. And now we have the connecting rod all mated together to the piston. And now it's ready to go on the crankshaft. And that'll be the next step. All right, next we're ready to do the connecting rod to the crankshaft. Now, if you look at the crankshaft, these center pieces right here, here, and here, they're the ones that the crankshaft is rotating about. The connecting rod actually gets mated to these lower and upper ones because as the crankshaft spins around, that will move the piston up and down, which we'll see hopefully in a few minutes if I get this done right. So as was the case with the piston and the pin, it looks like the connecting rod is perpendicular to everything, but that will get solved with our constraint. So we are going to constrain. So we're going to hit constrain, and we're going to go to the center part of the piston here. Let me get this out of the way so I can just see a little better. Maybe zoom in a little bit. Okay, so we want to have that line with the arrow going through, and we want to put it on this lobe of the crankshaft. And now, as was the case with the other constraints, we can see when we hit OK that it's there, but it slides all over the drawing. So what we need to do now is we need to mate the face of this to the face of this side of this plate here. So how that's going to look, we're going to rotate the view cube a little bit so we can see this face. There we go. We're going to hit constrain, and it's going to be a mate solution, but we're going to use this offset. Now, you notice it's in inches. It's because I didn't do tools and change all the settings. I think this is the only one where I need to offset something for the crankshaft. So instead of going through all that, we'll just, when we type it in, we'll make sure we type in mm for millimeters. So it's going to be a mate. We want to get this face. So let's zoom in a little bit. There we go. Pointing that way. And we want to mate it to the inside face of this. So we're going to turn this way and click there. And now it's in place. But the problem is it's off to one side and we want it in the middle. So to get that in the middle, the way we extruded this, we want to offset it, I believe, 3.3 millimeters. Yeah, see, look, that's right in the middle, and hit OK. All right, let's hit the home button and see how that looks. Now, one of the problems we're going to have here is when we move the crankshaft around, let's actually set that up right now. Let's do a constrain on the crankshaft, and we want to come over here to the origin folder, and do the Z axis and go to the crankshaft and open its origin folder and Z axis. You see that line appears there that's running along the main part of the crankshaft, and hit OK. So now you could actually grab the crankshaft with your mouse and move it. Now you can see as you move it, the piston is not only moving up and down, but it's moving back and forth, which is not what you want to happen in your car. That would be horrible. So what we're going to do is we're going to do another constraint, and we're going to constrain the YZ plane of the origin, and we're going to constrain that to the piston. We're going to open up its origin folder and constrain that to the Y-axis. Now we hit OK. And now when we look at this, the piston stays in one place. In fact, let's hit the front button on the crankshaft and just grab it and move it around. You can see it goes up and down like that. Now we just need to do that 3 more times. How are we going to do that? Are we going to import all these pieces again and reassemble them and do all that? No. We are going to copy the piston and paste it 3 more times. But we don't want to copy the crankshaft. That would be ridiculous. So let's just close this up and close all these folders. We're going to leave this one open in case, because we're going to need it. We're going to go to the crankshaft and we're going to right click on it. And you see where we have visibility, and visibility is on. We're going to turn the visibility off. And now it's gone. And you can see that it's still there, but it's a non-filled in cube. That's because the visibility is off, and the blue ones are the one where the visibility is on. So now we can just take our mouse, left click, and drag the whole piston, right click, copy, or hit Control C, and then right click, paste, or hit Control V 2, 3 times. Now we've got 4 pistons ready to go. Now, as we look at each one, like I'm going to click on this one, piston, that's piston 4, that's piston 3, that's piston 2, that's piston 1. That's perfect. We're going to just put these up here for right now. Then we're going to go over here and bring the crankshaft back. So we're going to right click on it and click its visibility and bring it back. Now, this series of matings, we just have to do them again. So again, constrain. There we go. With the arrow through it to that lobe. And we're going to hit OK, and we're going to have a look at it. And then we are going to do that constraint again. And we do that face. Now we got to zoom in on it. That face to that face. And then offset it 3.3 mm for millimeters. Can't speak today. Say OK. Then we're going to come back. Zoom out a little bit. Now that's piston 2. So we're going to open up piston 2, open up its origin, and then we're going to do the constraint again. We're going to do the YZ plane and constrain that to the piston 2's Y-axis. So that now that one stays in the right spot. If you don't do this, you can get the pistons will get all slanted on the side and you can't get them back. It's a real pain in the neck. Okay. Now let's do the next one. Constrain. There we go. To that lobe. And then constrain, zoom in, that face, view cube, turn it over, that face, 3.3 mm. Okay. Zoom out, hit the home button maybe for a second here. Constrain again, the YZ plane. Now we're going to close up piston 2. We're going to open up piston 3 and open up its origin folder and the Y-axis. That one's done. And now we just have the last one to go. So constrain. There we go. To that. Okay. Slide it out. Yeah, see, you can move it. Slide it out. Don't move it too much though, because you don't want to get this piston head all messed up. If you do get it messed up, and you can't get it straightened back out again, you can always just hit the Control-Z button to get it back to where you just had it. Okay, so now we're going to constrain this face to this face, just so you can see what we're doing here. Yeah, this face, and then 3.3 millimeters. Okay, hit the home button, constrain in the origin folder, the YZ plane. Now we want to close piston 3 and go down to piston 4. Open that origin folder and do the Y-axis. And now they are all constrained. Let's go to the front. Yep. They all move. Go to the home button. You can see it from this side. Yep, all moves perfectly. Okay, last step here. We want to be able to see this in action without us dragging it around with the mouse. You can see as I'm dragging it with the mouse, like it's kind of moving around, and it's dependent on how smoothly I do it. And I'm not doing a very smooth job of it. So let us do one last constraint. So we have our crankshaft file open, and we have our origin file open in the folder over here. So we're going to do a constrain, but instead of a mating type, we're going to go to this angle. All right, we're going to leave the angle at 0, and we're going to leave it as a directed angle. So we are going to do the XZ plane and the XZ plane of the crankshaft. And leave that at 0. And why is that not working? Let's cancel and try that again. Constrain. Maybe we need to do it this way. Angle. Go to the crankshaft and do its XZ plane. And do the XZ plane here. And then the reference vector. The Z-axis. And say, okay. Now it's like locked. But if we go down here, we have this angle in the crankshaft folder. If we right click that and select drive, let's do it for 720 degrees. So we'll start at 0. So this should go around 2 full times. And let's hit play. Here we go. And now it's moving. Isn't that cool? Well, I hope you found this helpful and a little bit of fun, and you got to use several different tools while you were doing this project, and you learned a little bit about how to use the Autodesk Inventor. Have a good day.